obviously, I didn't agree with your Medicare for All answer, but you did kill it on a couple of other issues, okay?
And you know what? When I said what I said, I felt dirty after I said it. I felt like, I maybe had to say it. The needle really moved for me on that tonight. Because hearing it from them and having to say to myself, you're agreeing with John Delaney here. You're really being pulled over here. I could just feel, I felt I was going to have people like yourself, like on my text. No! I still have a little question, and I still have that little bit, Cenk, on the insurance.
Let's talk about that for a second. Since we're already mid-conversation on that. So there is this irony that you score so well when you talk against corporate rule, and you did it again tonight. And on the issue of Medicare for All, you seem like, you're stuck on that one. It feels like you're almost in mid-evolution.
I am, but I am. And that's the truth of the matter. But I think the needle moved left today.
That's really interesting. So you think the needle moved for you a little bit when you saw yourself in the middle of the debate agreeing with John Delaney?
Yeah.
So that makes you more likely to think about it more and maybe move more towards...
I mean, I've heard you, I've heard Elizabeth, I've heard Bernie, I've heard Mr. Leidy. I also have a lot of people I respect who, as one friend of mine said, Americans don't like to be told they can't have mustard on their hot dog. I get that too. Congressman Hodes here, I don't know if you're Paul Hodes, I've had many hours of conversation about this. In fact, he was on the conversation with Michael Leidy the other day. You're going to have to give me a little more time, but the needle moved for me tonight. I have.
So just so that people are clear, because it's really important, because a lot of people heard you as kind of for a middle position and not necessarily for Medicare for All tonight. But you're leaving the door open to being for Medicare for All in the future?
But as I said to you the other day, but even Bernie's plan talks about a 4-year transition. Congresswoman Diapol's plan talks about a 2-year transition. So they're basically, the only thing that it seems to me we're talking about here is the issue of whether or not people will be able to keep their private insurance. Because they're transitional as well. Am I wrong about this?
So they do have a transition that gets to Medicare for All. And so the argument that I think you made tonight will sound to people like you don't want to eventually wind up there.
No. Oh, God, no. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I've never been that. I've never been that. No. Oh, no. That's really depressing that it sounded that way.
Yeah.
No.
So then what do you view as the role for private insurance? Let's put it this way, eventually. Any role...
Eventually.
Okay.
Eventually they're gone. They perform as greedily as Elizabeth, for instance, was saying tonight. It is horrible. They take a lot of money and give as little care as possible. I'm very aware of that. I remember when I had my own daughter, and the doctor didn't want me to have to leave the hospital that fast, and the insurance companies made me. And that was an experience of that. My daughter's 29 years old, and I remember how angry the doctor was, and it was my first real exposure to my personal experience. He didn't want me to leave that fast. So I get that. There's no ambiguity about that for me. It's a terrible, terrible example of corporate greed and all that. My only issue is that, that some people want it for whatever reason, and this idea of taking it away from people, I'm not totally there yet.
Marianne, I actually want to give you credit for something unprecedented. I have never seen anyone in a political debate come out of a debate and say, I was somewhat persuaded by the ideas of the people I was debating. I've literally never seen that in my life.
I was going to text you. Tonight. I didn't know you were going to be here. No.
Yeah. No.
Well,
look,
we're talking the gold standard here. We're talking Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So,
Yeah. No, that level of open-mindedness you will never see from a politician because they're too scripted.
You just heard it from me.
Okay, there you have it.
I'm a new kind of politician.
Okay, excellent.
That's part of the point here.
Exactly. But I actually want to ask you about two things where I thought you did great. When you talked about reparations and you said that it was a debt that is owed, I felt it resonate in the room. Have you used that terminology before? Because it seemed to really land a punch.
Oh, absolutely. I've had a career for 35 years working with issues of personal transformation. All a country is a collection of people. So whether you're an individual or a country, you can't have the future you want until and unless you're willing to clean up the past. You got to clean up your past relationships, or its energy stays stuck. So I'm not minimizing the struggles or sacrifices of any of our ancestors, black or white. I'm not saying there's been no success. I'm not minimizing the Civil Rights Act. I'm not minimizing the Voting Rights Act, although of course it's been chipped away at. But the issue of economic restitution is just a piece we haven't gotten to yet. And so the economic gap that existed at the end of the Civil War has never been closed. And at that time, Tecumseh Sherman promised to every former slave family of 4, 40 acres and a mule. In the vast majority of cases, it wasn't given. Even when it was given, the vast majority of those, it was taken back. So that gap was never closed. And I think most Americans might not have really allowed themselves to think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about, by the way, I want to go, well, I'll go back to that in a minute. Let's stay with the race, and then I have to go back to the health care and the Medicare for all. We're talking about 250 years of slavery that was followed by another 100 years of domestic terror and institutionalized violence against black people. And what do you call Ku Klux Klan and lynchings if not domestic terror? You're talking 350 years of institutionalized violence against black people. That is longer than the United States has even been in existence. Now, at the end of World War II, Germany paid $89 billion in reparations to Jewish organizations. And that has gone far towards establishing reconciliation between Germany and the Jews of Germany and the rest of Europe. Ronald Reagan in 1988 signed the Civil Liberties Act, where we gave to every surviving prisoner during World War II, the Japanese internment camp, between $20,000 and $22,000. So paying restitution and paying reparations is not a fringe idea. The reason I like reparations as opposed to race-based policies. Race-based policies doesn't speak to whose fault it is. Reparations carry moral force. It's not just about economic restitution. It is an inherent mea culpa. It is an acknowledgement of a debt that is owed. It is the acknowledgement of the willingness on the part of a nation to pay it, and payment rendered.
Marianne, I'll return the favor. I was unsure about how to execute reparations. When I heard you say it is a debt that is owed, it resonated with me. And it made me start to think, well, that's literal. This country owes a debt to those people who worked all those years and never got the fruits of their labor. And so thank you for bringing that forward today. Appreciate it.
And many cases in which black wealth has been accumulated, and then there have been state and local efforts to thwart that.
Yep.
So you've affected my thinking so much that it's nice to think I affected yours on that.
All right. Thank you so much, Marianne. Really appreciate it.
And I'm horrified to think I sounded like I didn't want to get there at all. Oh my God.
Okay. That's okay.
You'll have to help me on that.
Okay.
You'll have to help me. Have me on your show. I'm not that bad. I was never that bad. Never.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.